Right, so here's a fresh new tutorial on how to create this X-ray look in TouchDesigner. We'll be doing some basic 3D work in pops using our old render setup and doing some post-processing here at the end as always. This should be fairly easy to follow along, nothing complicated, no GLSL, nothing of that. So strap in. We are using fittingly thematically a spine here, but you realistically could put any 3D model in there as per your liking. So let's just get started. I'm just going to stop the cooking here. And in our new file, let's delete absolutely everything. And we just drop in our file in pop. This is where we load our 3D model. And where I got this was from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases website. This is licensed via Creative Commons Attribution 4.0. So here's the license, and here's the creator, Bill Lawrenson, shout out. Let's just download this. We'll be going with a GLB here, and make sure you read this. And once that is downloaded, we have to process that a little bit. So I'll be using Blender for this. You can probably use any online converter, GLB to OBJ, since OBJ is the only thing that TouchDesigner really likes. So I'll be dropping the GLB in Blender real quick. And this is absolutely nowhere to be seen. So S for scale, 0.01 to scale it down. And it's way over there. So object, let's set the origin geometry to origin. So let's rotate this so it's facing the right side up. R, Y, and RZ. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that looks pretty good. And one thing to keep in mind is we don't want this to be really high res. So right now we have 267,000 faces here. It's not that. You can, by the way, you can toggle the statistics with this. And if your model is ridiculously high res, I recommend you to decimate that down. So I'm going with a 0.5 ratio here. So it reduced the faces by half. Maybe we can even go with 0.25. You can see that it's kind of getting a bit less high res, but that's not bad. Let's just apply this. Select that and Control A, apply our transformations. And let's just export this as OBJ. I already have this exported, but just for the love of it, I'm going to export it again. Make sure it's selection only and we don't need the materials here. So once that is exported, let's go into TouchDesigner and grab that file. And where is it? There it is. And there we go. We have our file in there. Let's just build the render setup real quick so we see what we're doing. Same old, same old. Put that into a geometry. Put down a render top and a camera. And we will be using a Phong shader for this. So drop that on there as well. You can see the thing. Again, same old, RGB key and a null. And let's call this spinal. The hard work is done at this point, but not really. The Phong shader needs some lighting. So let's put light here. I don't know, why are the dotted lines not showing up? This is really confusing me right now. Anyways, so once we add a light and we view this, shortcut D. And if we move around in the light viewport by activating this little star or plus thing, we can set our light. I'm going to put one on the top and maybe one on the bottom as well, or maybe one in the front, I don't know, like that. And let's also rotate or animate the camera. I'm not going to do this in the camera itself, but I'll be dropping down a null here, basically as the camera controller, or parent as it is called. This null I'll be rotating on the y-axis, which is the up axis in TouchDesigner. Let's multiply that by 25. So you can see it's rotating here. And in our camera, I'm going to specify parent object and just drop that in there. So you have a basic turntable going on. And that is looking pretty fine by me, but I'm going for an X-ray look here, not really this solid thing, whatever this is. So in our Fong, I will be turning on or toning down the alpha to 0.15. You can see we get an error on our render. This error basically means that the Fong shader doesn't have blending enabled. So in common, let's turn on blending transparency, and you can already see it's kind of already transparent, but the faces that are behind the pixels that are behind the pixels in front are not being rendered, and that is the depth. Test here, we need to turn that off so we can see what's behind it. I'm not sure why this is on by default, probably to save some resources, but it's really bugging me that the dotted lines aren't here. Just imagine there's like a line going on here, 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 here. So this is our basic X-ray setup done. And by itself, the singular bone doesn't look that great, so I'll be adding a copy pop here. And in our copy, we can, in number of copies, let's say I want 5 of these, and every one should be offset by 0.5. You can see that on the axis it goes that way, but I want it to go up, so 0.5 up, maybe a bit less. And this is looking fine already, but it's a bit too uniform, and we don't have that much control over the structure of the spine here. So let's just turn this off again, put that back to 1. Instead, what I want to do is create a line pop here. That is basically like the skeleton of the skeleton, so to say. So in our points, let's set the second point x value to 0 and y to 3. So we get a line that is going from 0 to 3 upwards. And that line we can twist. So let's put that here. In our operation, let's set that to bend. And you can see that we have a little bendy noodle here. I think 25 was what I had in the other one. Can tone down the roll off a bit, and the pivot maybe to 1.5, because the thing is 3 units tall, so 1.5 is the halfway point basically here. So yeah, that is going to be our spine, and we want that to be points, so let's convert this to points to point primitives. Basically, these are point primitives, and we want points so we can... Actually, let me just test this. Can I just put this in here? Oh, I can. Never mind, don't do this. Just do this. We can use the point primitives as the copy references as well. So right now, if we middle click here, we can see we got 21 points. That is in the line divisions, we have 20 here. So 20 divisions with the endpoint, it's going to be 21 points. Let's set that to 10, or maybe 9 even. So we get 10 points here. So basically we have 10 vertebra. All right, so right now this looks pretty uniform still. I mean, we got that little bend in there, but the spines or the vertebrae, a singular one is called a vertebra, and the multiple of these are called a vertebrae. That's what I learned in research. So we want to randomize the rotation values. So let's right click here, insert a random, and an output attribute scope. I'm going to put in ROT, capital R, because this is what this takes in. You can call this anything you want. So rotation, even rotation would work with my little typo here. So template rotate, let's turn that on. And type in rotation. And nothing much happens still. Let me just go in here. Nothing much happens because our rotation is, or the randomized values are going from 0 to 1. If I put that to 360, everything is getting a random value from 0 to 360. This is overkill. Although it looks, actually it looks pretty cool. But let's stick to our plan here and put maybe 15. So each one gets a little variation in rotation here. And you can do how many, I didn't test this by the way, but we can probably put another random for the scale here. What did they call it? Point scale. Let me just copy that. Stop it with the shenanigans. Let's put point scale here, and it's going from 0 to 1. That's maybe 0.9 to 1. Why is it like that? What error am I getting? Not enough output components. Probably because this should be I don't know. I'll figure it out later. Oh my god, I'm getting so many errors. I'm sorry. Okay, no more testing during recording. Let's just stick with the rotation here. And let's, in our camera, let's zoom out a little bit. And let's move down a little bit so this is centered. And in our render, let's set the resolution to a square. You can do a landscape if you like yourself. So this is the basic X-ray thing. We can do some coloring with a lookup. Let's get a lookup here and a ramp here. And in our ramp, let's control what each section should look like. Let's zoom in again a bit so it's a bit bigger. There we go. So the highlights should stay white, and maybe clamp that, and the darks should, oh my god, flashbang. But yeah, the black should be really black, and then maybe a dark teal here, a little desaturated, maybe some greenish tint, and maybe even some yellowish would work up here. Maybe the teal should be more bright. And after this, we can add bloom. And before that, we can go into our palette here. If you don't see this, it's this button here. Image filters, and let's just, no, I don't want that. I want the feedback. And let's just put down a feedback so I kind of have some semi-motion blur. And also I like to add some radial blur immediately after our render here. So that's basically blurring from a single point. You can see that it's coming from the bottom left here, and the center point should be halfway of the image. So let's put 0.5, 0.5, and the strength just a little bit, maybe 0.05 or 6. I don't know. That looks good in my opinion. It's a bit dark, so let's actually add more lights here. So we got one from the top, one from this perspective. Let's put one on the other side. You can see the light there. Maybe go in a bit more. Maybe move this up a bit more. And this one should probably come from the bottom. Bottom light we can dim in the light tab here. This one we can probably dim it a bit. That looks fine. And we can add some grain here as well, just to mess up the image a bit. So let's add a composite, add a noise. Let's put this in here so we have the resolution and the input image. So let's multiply is fine, I think. And in here, let's grab the harmonics and put it up a bit so we have really messy noise. You can see what it's doing here. And also let's maybe make this Perlin 4D and animate the translate 4D here. Isn't the fourth dimension just time, by the way? Let's multiply that by 10. That looks fine. Actually, let's tone down the amplitude a bit. Maybe make it a bit finer. Less period. Even less amplitude. YouTube's compression is probably going to take this apart completely. So yeah, we can also add these scan lines. Let's add another comp here. So this flickering effect, we'll be using a pattern chop. What this does is it basically generates a signal here, and we'll be turning that signal into an image using a chop to top. And what we get here is just a 1 pixel tall and 1000 pixel wide strip. This is a 1D signal, so that makes sense, but I want it to be the size of this. And this is what, 1200 by 1200, so let's use a fit to scale it up, basically. And in fit, let's fill. And instead of a sine wave, actually we can use a sine wave, not a rectangle. But let's stick to what I did earlier. So let's just turn this into a square. You can see that it kind of fades out as the further up it goes. And I don't know why I'm stuttering. Nearest pixel is what I wanted to get at. And in here, we can turn on or turn up the number of cycles. Plug this into the comp, and you can see that it's getting absolutely destroyed. We should have probably put the thing before the radial blur. This is getting messy. I'm so sorry about this, but let's put that there. And let's animate the phase here as well. The abs times out seconds with a capital T. Times that by 10 maybe. And we can let's turn this off again. We don't want it to be pitch black in here, so in the pattern, I'm going to set the 2 range to 0.95 maybe, so it's a bit more subtle. Turn this on again. Maybe less cycles if you like. Play around with it, maybe 5. And if the lines are too sharp for you, just add a blur. Blur it up to get that beautiful flickering, those beautiful flickering lines. Also, the highlights aren't really highlighting here, so we can probably make the lights a bit brighter. That is too bright. And depending on your model and how big your scene is, you have to tweak these quite extensively to get the look you want, but it's very flexible. You can load in any model you want. And this is basically it. So I hope this was a short one and easier one to understand than my other ones. Also, you can put this through the CRT emulation video thing I built earlier to get a CRT look. But yeah, this is basically it. And if you liked it, let me know. Leave a comment, leave a like, leave a subscription. I love y'all. And I'll see you in the next one.